This is titled, Connecticut Offers Refuge to Red State Women with a Fugitive Woman Act. You can find it over at hartmanreport.com. And it's basically just passed a Texas kind of law, arguably even a little more restrictive. So if you're a 12-year-old girl in Texas who's been raped and impregnated, or the husband of an Oklahoma woman who's at a higher risk of death from pregnancy after the failure of birth control, really your only option right now is to move to Canada. And that's because individual states in the United States generally enforce the court judgments of other states. And so, you know, if you don't want to pay that $10,000, I mean, if you avoid a $10,000 judgment and go to pretty much any other state, they'll just, you know, find you and seize your property, seize your assets, and use that to pay off that judgment. If you go to Canada, though, it's less likely to happen because in Canada, abortion is 100% legal at all stages of pregnancy. There's not even the 3 trimesters and we're going to regulate that. Nothing, right? It's totally between a woman and her physician. And not only that, abortion is free in Canada. It's paid for by Canadian Medicare, which everybody in Canada has. So Canada probably is not going to extradite a woman for getting an abortion and is not going to seize her or her family's assets. Elie Stahl over at The Nation makes just an eloquent argument. There's a link to it in my article, suggesting that what's going on right now with women in the United States may end up being sort of like what happened in the United States in 1850 when the Fugitive Slave Act was passed. And, you know, slavery had been outlawed in Canada in 1834, and then the Fugitive Slave Act, which forced, I mean, it wasn't the first, but it was the most decisive, forced in the northern states to capture enslaved humans who had fled the South and repatriate them back to the South. What that did is it shifted the locus of the Underground Railroad to Canada. And, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of black Canadians now who are the descendants of those people who used the Underground Railroad. And in a short time, though, so Canada is the logical place for women who are trying to escape the handmaid states, is what I'm calling them, these red states. We have 26 states now that are planning on criminalizing or financializing abortion if Roe v. Wade gets struck down. But Connecticut has come up with a new law. Now, it's passed the House of Representatives, and it's waiting for action by the Senate. Ned Lamont, the governor of Connecticut, has said that he will sign the act, the bill, calling it the Fugitive Woman Act. They have a long and wonky name for it. But it would guarantee girls and women who come to Connecticut absolute medical privacy. So nobody would be able to determine if they got an abortion. It would absolutely refuse to enforce any abortion-related financial judgments from other states, which is huge. I've never heard of any state doing this, you know, basically opting out of this whole system. And Connecticut would refuse to arrest or deport women or family members who are accused of criminal abortion law violations in the 26 red handmaid states. And, you know, that are preparing for passed the Connecticut House 2 weeks ago and has gone to the Senate. The Family Institute of Connecticut, which is a right-wing anti-abortion group, or forced pregnancy group, I suppose you should call it, is complaining that the law creates a safe harbor, for women and their families who, quote, violate abortion laws in other states. And that, according to State Representative Matt Blumenthal, who's the principal author of this legislation, is exactly what they're trying to do. He said, I think one important point about the bill that we're talking about today is that it is purely, the only way that it comes into effect is if another state tries to impose their laws on us. So, you know, we're rapidly seeing a bifurcation in America between handmaid states and free states. And in the handmaid states, you see the culture war, matters like gay, trans, immigration, and abortion rights, and pocketbook issues like the minimum wage and Medicaid and the right to unionize. This bifurcation, this separation is getting more and more visible. And the only thing that could blow up what Connecticut is up to is federal legislation, which is exactly what Representative Ileana Ross-Layton is proposing, the Republican from Florida. She's pushing the so-called Child Interstate Abortion Notification Act that would bring the FBI in if Connecticut tries to offer, asylum to somebody. The zeal of these Republicans to control will ever be underestimated. Over 25 states now have gone after and tried to prosecute women for having miscarriages. Like down in Alabama, when Marsha Jones, 27-year-old African-American woman who was 5 months pregnant, was shot in a fight and caused her to miscarry her 5-month-old fetus, and Alabama wanted to put her in prison, not the man who shot her. Multiple states, Mississippi right now, have or are considering bans on the sale or possession of birth control pills. Missouri is going after morning after pills, and Mississippi and Missouri are both considering outlawing hormonal birth control pills because they say it causes abortions before pregnancy, or words to that effect. I mean, remember when Mike Pence was proposing basically a statewide registry in Indiana for women's periods, and it started this whole Periods for Pence thing where women, it was a giant Facebook site, and where women were reporting, my period started, Governor, you can just relax now for another 30 days. It was very funny. This is not funny anymore. And after the Supreme Court slices and dices Roe v. Wade, and we're going to get that decision within a month or two, expect the federal government to try to get into the act if Republicans seize control of Congress this fall. Now, we'll still have 2 years where we've got a president with a veto pen. But if they take the whole enchilada in 2024, it's going to get real ugly real fast for women in the United States and their families.